Now, we all know that Bryce Young's rookie season was a complete disaster, but the reason for Bryce Young's struggles during his first year was because he was in the worst situation in the National Football League. The Carolina Panthers gave this dude no run game, no offensive line, and his best receiver was old man Adam Thielen. So this offseason, they invested a lot into giving Bryce Young a better supporting cast, and I really love what the Carolina Panthers brought in for him. You trade for Diontae Johnson, who comes from the Pittsburgh Steelers, which as a Steelers fan, I was really hurt to see Diontae Johnson get traded away because I felt like he was the best wide receiver on the roster. And he's going to fix the Panthers' biggest problem, which was their inability to have wide receivers that could actually separate and get open consistently. Diontae Johnson not only is one of the best route runners in the league, but he's one of the best pure separators in the game. He creates a lot of separation on his routes, and he was held back by poor quarterback play. Now, you can say, oh, JT, well, if he had poor quarterback play in Pittsburgh, he's not going to get anything different in Carolina. I strongly disagree with that. There's a reason why Bryce Young went #1 overall despite his size. And it's easy for people to fall victim of the recency bias because of how good CJ Stroud was last year. But most people would have took Bryce Young either first or second overall. So if a guy this small has been drafted this high, it's for a very good reason. There's still a lot to love about Bryce Young. And giving him a guy like Diontae Johnson, who can be his go-to target on third down situations because you know he's always going to be open, is going to be a big boost to helping Bryce Young make that big jump in his second year. And I view this Diontae Johnson trade by Carolina in a similar way to when the Buffalo Bills, early into Josh Allen's career, made the trade with the Minnesota Vikings to acquire Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, he did a really good job at getting open, creating separation, and he ended up becoming one of the best receivers in the game during his time in Buffalo. And I think there's going to be a similar story with Diontae Johnson. Diontae Johnson should easily have over 1,000 yards this year with the Carolina Panthers, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing him do more damage than just that. He could easily go for 1,100, 1,200 yards. He's been one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league for a while due to him not having great QB play. Bryce Young getting Diontae Johnson is going to be a big boost for him going into his second season. Then you draft Xavier Legette in the first round. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I like the player, but I didn't like where Xavier Legette was drafted, only because he wasn't really all that great at creating separation. And he doesn't really have a lot of proven production outside of that lone season last year that he had for the Gamecocks. But there's a lot to like about Xavier Legette. He's not the most polished route runner, but this dude is an insane athlete. He's built like a damn monster truck. He's insane after the catch. He's like a running back when he gets the ball in the open field. And most defensive backs, they don't like to tackle. So trying to tackle Xavier Legette off bubble screens or jet sweeps, yeah, good luck when it comes to that if you're a safety or a cornerback, because Xavier Legette probably is going to be running guys over like he's playing Madden 25 and he's Marshawn Lynch. He also is really good at winning 50-50 balls downfield, which is something that Carolina's wide receivers were unable to do. There was no wide receiver on this team that you could look at and say, oh yeah, all Bryce Young has to do is throw it up and they're going to go get it, which is why they couldn't push the football downfield. With Xavier Legette, with how good of a deep threat he is and his ability to win these 50-50 matchups downfield, you're now going to have somebody who's going to help Bryce Young be better at throwing the deep ball more effectively. Then in the middle portion of the draft, you get running back Jonathan Brooks, who once he gets healthy, he should be the RB1 on this team because their run game was non-existent for the majority of last year. Now, Chuba Hubbard was pretty decent. He's a really good RB2, but it took him a while to become the RB1 only because they paid Miles Sanders so much money. And Miles Sanders, looking back at the decision to sign him, it easily is one of the worst free agency signings that the Carolina Panthers have ever made because this dude is garbage. I'm surprised he's still on the roster. Now, you can say the offensive line didn't do him no favors, but it seems like Miles Sanders just has no vision, and he only benefited these last couple of years playing behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL down there in Philadelphia. So you get Jonathan Brooks, who many people had either penciled in as RB1 or RB2 in this draft. Really good when it comes to finding open running lanes. He has great vision. He's great after contact. I think he's going to turn out being a stud for Carolina. Then you get Jatavian Sanders, another Texas prospect who was really good also during his time with the Longhorns. Looking at these young receivers that the Panthers have brought in, Diontae Johnson, Xavier Legette, these two guys should have an instant impact on this offense year one under Dave Canales. Dave Canales, his offense is all about timing, getting the ball out fast, getting his quarterback in rhythm, getting a guy like Diontae Johnson that can get open, create a lot of separation, having a guy like Xavier Legette who can be a good yak threat and a potential very good deep ball threat for you is going to have a big impact on helping Bryce Young make that next jump year or two into his career. Now, you still do have Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, he's only getting older. Eventually, Father Time is going to come to his door, and eventually he's going to slow down and not be serviceable for you. But he still, this season, should be able to give you a little bit of juice. He doesn't have to be your number one option anymore. He probably should be their third option by the end of next season. If everything goes well for Carolina, Adam Thielen should be wide receiver 3 because Xavier Legette steps up as your number 2 and Diontae Johnson takes over as your true number 1. Now, Terrence Marshall, Jonathan Mingo, I'm not writing those guys off yet. Okay, Terrence Marshall, I still was a big fan of his when he was coming out of LSU, and I just feel like he's been underutilized, and there hasn't really been a head coach that Carolina has had that's been able to maximize his talent. Jonathan Mingo, he is a lot similar to the player that Xavier Legette is. Not really a great separator, more so of a yak guy. But he didn't look too bad last year. He did have a couple of big plays here and there. But everybody should benefit with Dave Canales being the head coach now. Everywhere Dave Canales has been, he's had success. He helped Geno Smith resurrect his career in Seattle. He helped Baker Mayfield resurrect his career last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everywhere Dave Canales goes, this dude does wonders with whoever is the quarterback. If you can have Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield playing at Pro Bowl caliber levels, I expect for him to be able to do the same thing with Bryce Young, who is a former number 1 overall pick. Now, I'm going to keep it 100 with you guys. This receiving core that they have, although it is way better than what they had last year, still isn't that good. But with Bryce Young being a former number 1 pick, he has to be able to overcome certain limitations. And there was a reason why he was expected to be the number 1 or number 2 overall selection despite his size. There's still a lot to like about Bryce Young's game. This dude is viewed as a point guard. When he was coming out of Alabama, what he did well was distribute the ball quick, fast, and effectively. And that's what Dave Canales' system is all about. It's all about timing and getting the quarterback into rhythm. And he runs a quarterback-friendly scheme. And with the players that Bryce Young has around him, if he's able to live up to that number 1 overall pick billing, he should be able to help make up for the rest of this offense not really being all that great. Because, I mean, yeah, there probably are better options out there right now that you would like to be your number 2 wide receiver, Xavier Legette. I still don't really know how good he's going to be right out the gate, but I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt because I'm a big believer in Dave Canales. And really, all you really have to do with Xavier Legette is just find different ways to get him the football, because with how he's built, he's going to make a lot of big plays after the catch. I'm not really tripping on his inability to not really create a lot of separation when he does a lot of other things really well in his game. So overall, if you're a Panthers fan, you should be really happy with the new supporting cast that Bryce Young is going to be throwing the football to this year. The offensive line, I really think that's a topic for another day. But the offensive line definitely has improved. You bring in 2 really good offensive guards. Your offensive tackles aren't that bad. Taylor Morton is one of the best right tackles in the game. And Akem Ekwonu, he showed a lot of promise his rookie season. But outside of that, you know, his career has kind of been up and down. But with Dave Canales, I definitely think that this offensive line is going to look a lot better. And overall, you have a way better offense going into this season than what you did last year. Bryce Young had to overcome having two different head coaches in the same season. They fired Frank Wright. Then he had to deal with an interim head coach. He had three different play callers. You had Frank Wright, who caught the plays to start the season. Then Frank Wright gave off play calling to somebody else. And then he took back the play calling. And then once he got fired, somebody else got the play calling again. So Bryce Young went through three offensive coordinator changes within the span of one season, having no run game, no offensive line, and his best wideout being Adam Thielen. When you have to overcome those kinds of limitations, you're bound to be in for a disastrous rookie season. I get that when you get drafted that high, you have to be able to do more with less, because that's just the expectation that comes with getting drafted that high, because you're going to a dysfunctional team. You have to be a game-changing kind of quarterback. But you just can't overcome a complete shit show, which is what Bryce Young was in last year. His rookie season was the equivalent to what Trevor Lawrence was put through his first year at Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. And you saw how better Trevor Lawrence has looked ever since they parted ways with Urban Meyer and they replaced him with Doug Peterson. I think the same is going to happen with Bryce Young. So when it comes to this new supporting cast that Bryce Young is going to have to work with this season, he's better set for success year two than what he was in his first season when this organization pretty much left him out to dry.